If you watch my videos, you may know that I'm a big fan of games that tell stories, games that create narratives. And I'm a little picky in the way I define that. Many games can be said to have a narrative, say large historical war games. But to me, games that really tell stories are games that center on individual characters. You can see the white of their eyes, or the purple or the red, if you're talking about fantasy or sci-fi. Those characters develop over time, there is a detailed setting that they inhabit, and this is why, for example, I'm a fan of the traditional, or the classic game Barbarian Prince, that solitaire, paragraph, and map-based game from back then, or also 2-hour war games that have all of those random event tables that really can create large story worlds, and then within those worlds you can control very detailed characters. For all these reasons, I was interested in trying the Drifter, the Wild West adventure game, which is based largely on ideas that you may have seen from, well, the games that I mentioned, Barbarian Prince and 2-hour war games. This is a solitaire game set in the Old West, in a romanticized, in a semi-fictional version of that. Of course, it's based more on Western fiction than on the American West, at least that's my understanding. After playing the game, that's the feel that I got. In the Drifter, you are this adventurer, and you have had a life that included some good things and also some crimes. You're kind of like a morally gray character, and you have decided you want to stop adventuring. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have repented from your previous crimes. It just means that you don't want to go out and do adventures anymore. So your job, your task in this game is to travel around, drifting around, looking for $300 to collect 300 unspent bucks, to have that in your pocket. That will be enough to buy you the ranch and to allow you to retire. If you're familiar with Barbarian Prince, and in particular, you almost know how to play this game, minus maybe a couple of different things. Now, in this game, it's a print and play. I guess maybe they sell printed copies, but I printed my own. I found the files on Wargame Vault, and you will have to print a rule book and an event book, which really is the heart of the game, and that gives you a sense of how much you have to print. These are all double-sided. Also gives a sense of how much stuff there is, because this is the event book, this is the world that you will explore. And that being me, minus spoilers here when I show you some of the tables, but without those you really don't get a sense of how the game works. But you can see each table, of course, is an event, is something that may happen, so that gives a sense of a really rich and detailed world. You will also need some play sheets and some tokens to keep track of things, and also dice. Now, you have here a Drifter 1 level that tells you if you're alive or not. You place a token here when you are healthy and doing well, and then when you take once, you record that until hopefully then you heal, or not so hopefully you're dead, in which case the game ends. As you can see, different levels of wounds or health correspond to different adjustments in finesse. That is a modifier, that is your stat that you use for everything that is physical, especially combat. Hunch, you will have a value in hunch, and that is used as a modifier for other types of tests, cognitive tests, intuition, and things like that, figuring things out. It's pretty much how smart you are. Karma, because it's the Old West, but apparently we have that concept there. I can't imagine John Wayne really bothering, or Clint Eastwood bothering too much about karma, but so be it. In game terms, it works because it's a resource that you can spend to get rerolls, and different actions may lower it or give you more of that. Money tracker, you will use tokens here to record, well, again, how much money you have. If you get the $300 in your pocket, you win the game. You write down your equipment here. Of course, I wrote it on a separate sheet of paper. I try not to defile my print and play games. Weapons, you start with fists and a pistol, and you always have those weapons. You may find other weapons. What really characterizes the effectiveness of a weapon is a suit. So many stats are defined by suits to go with the card games theme that we associate with the Old West. When you fight, you will place tokens on this sheet here for the enemies that you're fighting, and just they work like you. They have a starting finesse. If they take one, that will be indicated in the event book. If they take ones, then their finesse goes down, and again you're trying to get them down to dead to get rid of them. Then we have a map, which really is one of the most important elements of the game, although events are not usually associated with the map. So you'll place a counter on the map, and then you will move each turn, and this is the heart of the game. You move and then you resolve an event. The event may trigger more events, but the general idea is you move and then you have at least an event. And those events are procedurally generated. So for example, you hear about, say, something important in the area where you are. Then you roll a die to indicate the direction, to find out the direction. Then you roll another die to see the distance, and then you find there is a treasure or a dungeon. I'm using examples not from the game, so I don't give you spoilers. So there's a dungeon with a mad wizard and a dragon to defeat 4 hexes northeast from where you are. And then you write that down. That's called a point of interest. So as the game progresses, you will discover the points of interest. There are some game effects that may be related to if you're in the marshland or if you're in the desert, or certain things you can only do in towns. But most of the events are randomly and procedurally generated. So remember the idea: move around the map, move usually 1 hex, resolve at least an event, and see what happens there. Continue like this until either you're dead or you find $300, or maybe there are other ways also win the game that you may discover. Who knows? Who am I to say? The event table, which is again so important. You will place a token here to indicate the column that you use for the event table. The column that you use also indicates how much the law knows about you and how much they really want to get you, how likely they are to send an elite posse after you, or how likely they are to do, well, bad things. So, and different actions that you do during the game may change the suit, the bounty suit that indicates the column that you will use to resolve your events. When you're resolving an event, you roll a D100, if you have one, or of course 2 10-sided dice, and then use one as the tens, one as the units. Cross-reference your bounty suit unit, your bounty suit column with the result, and then you go to the corresponding location on the event book. Usually you will find a table where you will roll again. The table indicates a general type of event, say you meet a stranger, or a prospector, a lonely woman, stuff like that, a group of Comanches. And then after that, again, you roll to another table within that event to see what happens there, what other opportunities happen, whether or not you have to roll again, etc., etc., etc. Combat, everybody wants to know about that, right? During combat, you attack and they attack you. That's pretty much self-explanatory. You take turns. What happens here is that you will, when you attack, you take the finesse of the attacker, you subtract the finesse of the target. That gives you a modifier that you modify, that you attach to a 10-sided die roll. You cross-reference that with the suit of the weapon that you're using. Remember, I showed you that earlier, that weapons are identified by suits. And then you simply have the result, which may be a mess, which may be a level of ones that you, in which case you add it to a healthy target, or you compound it with previous ones from a previously wounded target. Maybe you kill them in one swift hit, but that's the general idea. That's how you resolve combat. You continue cycling through the combat procedure, everybody attacking you and your opponents until you're not there anymore, or they're not there anymore. Sometimes you need to take a skill test, in which case there will be modifiers. Roll, apply modifiers based on your skills, cross-reference with the level of test that you will be given in the text, and see if you pass or fail. And after you kill somebody, or when you're instructed to look for loot, again, you will be given a column, and then you roll cross-reference and see what you find there. There's a general idea. I'm torn whether I should show you some of these tables or not. Maybe, just from a distance, kind of like close your eyes a little bit. Just get a sense. If you don't want spoilers, just don't look at this on your phone. So you just see the general structure. That's what I want to show you. I don't want to give you spoilers, but the general structure is each event will have a table, sometimes a table within a table. Things will be linked, like you've heard about a criminal. Go to that other table somewhere else. Oh, this is the hideout of the criminal. Is the criminal there or not? And things like that. Out there, things may happen, and often will do, to people as smart and as drifty as you. That's all I can say in my general explanation about the Drifter. Now, the conclusions. So, the Drifter, it is a narrative-oriented solitaire game. I guess you could play cooperatively with multiple players making decisions, but ultimately you have one main character, you may find allies, but it has a solitaire feel to it. Narrative-oriented, this is the key element here, because there are a lot of elements that you would not enjoy unless there was a strong narrative that makes up for those, which also means you need to enjoy that. You need to enjoy the story that emerges from the procedures of the game so much that you overlook, well, for example, the massive random element. The first time that I played, I was killed in the first encounter, just a bunch of criminals with knives, and they took me down, and I was like, okay, that's short. Started over. Also remembered, about using karma for rerolls. I had forgotten about that, and this time it went a lot better. And then the third time that I tried, I figured out how to win the game. Well, I won in a way that I didn't expect, but enough spoilers there. But what really matters is the journey. Unless you get killed at the first encounter, then you have a journey. And that is precisely why this game is exciting and interesting. Not for everybody, because really you have to be in a state of mind, in the mood of enjoying pretty much an interactive, not even an interactive novel, an interactive script. The game is not a game book that comes with full, detailed, flavorful, atmospheric descriptions that will give you really a sense of a scene. Because the prose is extremely concise, is extremely up to the point, it feels like it's a summary, it's a script for a movie, or a summary of a much bigger narrative. And of course, that means that you have to fill in the gaps. Fictional example, if you're robbing a bank, the text is probably going to say something like, you robbed the bank, roll a die and see what happens. You're not going to have the setup, you're not going to have all of these things. So you have to add detail to really flesh out the scene and really have the immersive illusion that you're there and you're meeting with these crazy peoples and you're running from somebody, you're running after somebody, you're fighting, you're facing different situations. So, you have, again, I believe that will narrow the audience, of course, because it's not exactly a game book. It has some of the elements of the game book, but you need to pretty much create the story in your mind. You have to add a lot more than in a game book. And again, you have to go with the flow. You have to go with the randomness. The randomness can be good, again, if story is all that you want, or mainly what you want, in which case, hooray! The randomness will create interesting stories, will combine the elements in ways that are different every time. But again, it's not a game for planners. It is a game, well, I guess it's in the title, for drifters, for gamblers, for people that want to see what happens next. If you're into this kind of mood, then the game is really fun. I enjoyed playing it, precisely for what it has to offer. I had a sense of story, although I had to do something in my head to create those scenes and those situations. But the story was there. It reminded me of a lot of... It's really an encyclopedia of Western tropes. Some of those I had forgotten. Oh yeah, Western movies also kind of... Oh yeah, Western comics can also include this or that. The variety is astounding. Definitely that is a strong element of the story, that there is so much to discover in it that if you enjoy the system, you can definitely navigate it for a really long time before you encounter too many times. Sometimes you encounter the same encounter twice, but then there are variants, there are different situations that actually will make it different. Of course, it's procedurally generated, so again, my experience will be different from yours because my actions will create, and the randomness around them mainly, will create different strings of events. The stories that I created, that I experienced with the Drifter were enjoyable. I enjoyed it. So it's a simple game, very approachable, not for everybody. Definitely, you also have to print your own copy, but that should not be too hard. The Drifter, old school, adventure in the style of Barbarian Prince. Not for everybody, probably, but enjoyable. I liked it.